Okay, let's do it. It's Wednesday. Got to tune into Flash Drive on Wednesday.
Fun.
Welcome, astute listeners. That was my Grammy-worthy performance. We'll see if I win next week. You may have noticed a slight change to our record schedule this week because of a little thing we like to call the budget.
Le budget.
I'm Georgie Tunney.
And I'm James Law.
And this is Flash Drive. J-Law, what a week.
Yeah, we've had the budget last night.
Did it live up to, last week you called it Nerds Christmas. Did it live up to that infamous title?
Oh, look, I don't know if it was that exciting.
Yeah.
But, there was some cash splashed about, which is always fun to talk about, and we'll get into that today.
Yeah, let's amp it up a bit though. Like it was exciting, definitely exciting, worth listening to J-Law and I bang on about it for a little bit. Definitely. Also coming up, we're going to have a brief review of the Oscars. Didn't say much happened there, J-Law.
Yeah, pretty dull.
That's also pretty dull, but tune in. We'll get our hot takes on all that happened there with all the drama between Will Smith and Chris Rock, that altercation, and how the hell the world has now reacted to it as well. Plus, the Prime Minister's copped another barrage of stinging criticism. Last night was budget night. However, now we're talking about this. He's had to defend it today, and it's come from inside his own party once again.
Morrison is not fit to be Prime Minister.
That is coming up, but first, who are the real winners and losers from the 2022 budget? According to the PM, there's something for everyone in it.
It's another well-designed, responsible, targeted measure, and it's allowing Australians to keep more of what they earn to get through the challenges ahead, which are very immediate.
That was the PM speaking to Channel 9 this morning, and we've spoken a lot on this podcast, J-Law, about the cost of living and how crucial that issue is going to be to both major parties' election campaigns. Last night, the Treasurer made the coalition's pitch on how best to help alleviate that financial stress.
Obviously, the centrepiece is a cut to the fuel excise, which will see lower petrol prices for Australian families. There are also cheaper access to medicines. And with our commitment to lower taxes, we're also boosting what is called the low and middle income tax offset by an additional $420.
Okay, so he's laid out a few platforms there. None of them, I guess, are too surprising, really. We were expecting most of these. But, Jayla, what do you think of these tactics? Do you think it worked? Or is there any cynical part of you that just thinks this is a huge, cash splash ahead of an election?
Well, on Sky News last night after the budget was handed down, one of the voters who they spoke to said, this feels a bit like a bribe.
Yeah.
And so if that just is like a Joe Bloggs voter thinking that, they might have a bit of a challenge on their hands selling this. So, yeah, there was an $8 billion cash splash to be handed out to mostly lower and middle income earners, and also that much faded cut in the fuel excise tax.
Yes.
So I think that is the sort of smartest measure in the budget politically.
Yeah.
So what the government did is it cut the fuel excise tax. This is like a tax that's every time you fill up, you have to pay without even knowing it.
Yeah.
It was 44 cents. They've cut it to 22 cents.
Which essentially means, we did a huge explainer on this last night, but because sometimes we've been seeing petrol prices now at $2.20 a litre. So that 22 cents is going to take it to just underneath that $2, which is a difference.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a very easily noticeable win for the government, right? When people go to the Bowser, it was over $2.20. Now it's below $2.
It kind of has that immediate effect, right?
Immediate psychological effect.
Yes.
I think that the voter will be able to recognise that the government has heard about these cost of living pressures and they've done something about it, and it should kick in straight away. So I think that's going to be a tick for them. The problem, though, with a lot of these measures is that they are really only short term. 6 months. The next 6 months is what we're talking about.
And that's for that whole $8 billion?
The $8 billion's over 2 years, but it's across different measures. But the main things, right, so that fuel excise tax, the cut is only for 6 months. So come September, it's just going to go back up again.
Yes.
The tax offsets, so, they were handing out this $420 of tax offsets to everyone who makes less than $126,000 a year. But that is only for this tax time.
Yeah, so by next financial year, we won't be seeing that tax relief. We aren't going to see those offsets. So it's not essentially that people will be paying more. It's just that they won't have that offset there. So technically it is going to see them worse off, right?
Well, yeah. In like a little bit over a year, you're going to end up paying more tax. So it is a short-term measure. And so you add all these things up and maybe some voters will start to wonder, is this just to get the government through to the next election? You know, I wouldn't blame voters for looking at it that cynically.
But do you think then do you think that we're in a position right now for voters to be looking that far ahead? Because with the cost of living pressures, I mean, the government, they've said it's temporary, it's targeted, it's responsible. Those are all of their buzzwords around this budget. It's enough for them to get through the election period and the next 6 months. And to be honest, though, I'm not sure if everyday voters are actually looking further beyond that. So maybe it is enough for them.
Yeah, and you know what they keep saying in there when they're selling the budget is they're just trying to make out we understand these cost of living pressures. We're listening to you, and here's what we've done. And it's not like we've thrown out crazy amounts of money, like in the scheme of a cash splash budget. It's not like crazy dollars. So I think it probably will resonate. I think people will be like, all right, got a little bit of something back, and my worries about cost of living have been acknowledged. The thing though is that Labor will probably match all of it.
Yes.
And so
yes.
You know, you'll get probably the same tax cuts if you vote the other way too.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because I think the main reaction that we have been seeing from the Labor Party even this morning is not necessarily any direct criticism of the budget. They, of course, aren't outlining or declaring or making any promises for what they would do instead. Because you're right, I think that they would kind of be like, well, it's not terrible. Like, that's probably similar to what we're thinking.
The problem, though, is it doesn't look very far ahead.
Yes.
And I think that voters do expect governments to think a little bit beyond election cycles.
Yes.
So a lot of the, debt and deficit, it's a big deficit. It's not as big as it was originally meant to be, but still huge. And they think that the budget's not likely to get back into surplus for a decade.
Yay!
The debt levels are off the charts, and they haven't even peaked yet.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of attention given to that. I think the voters care about that a little bit. They care more about what's in their pockets. But
yes.
It does show that strategically, I don't think that the government is looking that far ahead.
Do you think that people would have watched the budget last night? Because I have been hearing from reporters who are on the ground this morning trying to gauge that public reaction and see exactly what the voters are thinking. And lots of them couldn't find anyone who was watching or has any idea what's going on.
Was maths on last night? Because,
Actually, I think
choices.
I think it was. I really think it was. But it puts this into perspective, right? And a little bit of a plug here for our platform Flash, because we've gone through and, as we've been talking about, really dissected the key winners and the key losers in trying to make it what you need to know about this budget and how it is going to directly affect you. So check that out. I think it is a very digestible video that we've been able to put together.
It's like 3 minutes long.
Yeah. Which, when you think about it, there was a lot of budget coverage last night, so the team did really, really well for that to happen. Quickly with our winners, we've been talking about low and middle income earners, the motorists. We also had in there, what was our third one?
The first home buyers.
That's right, the first home buyers, because it's that 5% deposit, which is going to carry on, well, for I think it's another 50,000 places.
That's right, yeah. So that scheme's been expanded, and so what it does is it allows people, first home buyers who are struggling to save up for that 20% deposit, they only need to save 5% and then can apply for this scheme. The government will guarantee the other 15%, help you crack into the market quicker.
Which is practically impossible to do without these type of measures.
Certainly in the capital cities, yeah.
Yeah, so those were our top winners. There are, of course, some other areas and sectors that also, got quite a bit of the cash that was being splashed around. For our biggest losers, we had the aged care sector, because, yes, they have been given, I think it's about $50 million worth of funding. However, that's largely going to vocational education and training courses to upskill workers who are currently undertrained. So really, when you look into it, it's not necessarily attracting any new workers into the workforce because the wages themselves aren't going to be getting upped.
And that's a big problem, right?
Really big problem. And that's what the Royal Commission was all about, that you need higher skilled workers. So you need that extra training, which they're doing. But in order to get that extra training, you need to also make it worthwhile. You can't just have highly skilled workers getting paid the same rate as lower skilled workers in a very, very demanding area, both physically and mentally for them. So you need to make it more attractive and incentivise it. And I don't think the budget goes far enough with this, given all of the recommendations we've seen over the last few years. So we had aged care workers as a particular loser from the budget. We also had everyday workers.
I'm one of those.
I know, you and I.
I'm a loser?
You are. I mean, J-Lo, we've had this discussion before, but technically in a budget sense.
Okay.
You watch me get fired. In a budget sense, yes. And so millions of Australians are, because it's all to do with inflation, right? Because the inflation rate is going to go 4.75%, or was it 4.2? Over 4%.
Yeah.
That's predicted. It was initially forecast to be 2.75. So obviously massively over that, which means basically that you have less disposable income to spend on other things you want to do, fun activities, maybe even just buying groceries. That's what, you have to use your disposable income for those things now. And the wage growth isn't there to be able to counter that.
Right. And so this is why they're throwing the money at the petrol and giving you a bit of tax back, right? Because everyone's wages are completely stagnant.
Yes.
And when do they say that wages are going to go up? Is there any clue there?
Mid-decade.
Okay,
So 2025 is probably the first time that we are going to see real term wage growth that would be able to sort of, you could see a difference, a meaningful difference to you.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. And, some of the commentary from economists coming out of the budget is that some of these spending measures may actually make inflation worse, right? Because if there's more money stimulating the economy, that may, boost up inflation and will have a lot of ripple effects, right? It may cause the Reserve Bank to have to look at interest rates sooner than it would have liked.
Yes.
So that means you might pay more on your mortgage. So it's a really delicate balance, right, to get all of these different, inflation, wages, consumer price index, all these things right, because otherwise it may be that the government gives money here, but then the Reserve Bank and the cost of living takes it away there.
Yep.
So it's a bit of a dire outlook.
It really is. What a way for us to finish, having a chat about the budget, guys. Sorry,
You're
Nerds
all
Christmas.
losers.
A lump of coal. The other huge news that we've seen this week, J-Law, Oscar-winning actor Will Smith publicly came out and apologised to comedian Chris Rock because he slapped him on stage at the Academy Awards after a joke that was made at his wife Jada Pinkett-Smith's expense.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right?
Now, you can hear laughter there. The star-studded crowd wasn't quite sure how to take what they'd just seen. I don't think anyone really could. But when Smith returned to his seat, it was clear the exchange was not part of some pre-planned stunt or anything to do with a sketch or publicity. He was actually furious.
Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the out of me.
Keep my wife's name out of your mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out of your mouth.
I'm going to, okay?
Yeah, right? What was your immediate reaction to this? I wasn't watching it live, and then I just remember hearing about it and being like, what? Someone's like, I'm pretty sure Will Smith just hit Chris Rock. And I was like, that can't be real. And even when I was watching the video, I was like, that can't be real.
Yeah. Well, in the newsroom when it happened, it was like the whole world did a double take.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Did that just happen?
Yeah.
Everyone had to confirm and text and message others to be like, did I dream that? Which off script, this reminds me of I was at the uni pub when the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction happened.
Super Bowl, yes.
And it was like no one was really watching it. I was just there with a beer waiting for friends. And I remember seeing Janet Jackson's boob and like looking around going, did that happen?
Was that real?
Did I dream that?
Yeah, what's going on? What's going on?
I think everyone's reaction was the same.
Yes.
So yeah, and then we went back, watched it a couple of times, and I was like 100% real. He meant to do that.
Yeah.
But it took a while for everyone to agree with me.
Well, and I think that was maybe because you may have missed like some of the little bits of context in the lead up to it. So if you'd missed what Chris Rock was joking about, or if you didn't quite understand the context of the joke and you couldn't really see the big deal about it, it all just then spiraled. I remember watching about 5 times before I was really like, wait, so hang on, what? What's going on? He's upset because of that, because of this, and then that's happened, and then this has gone on, and the show's continued.
Yeah.
And then Will Smith wins Best Actor award for his performance in King Richard. This was some of his acceptance speech.
Richard Williams was a fierce defender of his family. You got to be able to take abuse. You got to be able to have people talk crazy about you. I want to apologize to the Academy. I want to apologize to all my fellow nominees. Art imitates life. I look like the crazy father, just like they said. I look like crazy father, just like they said about Richard Williams. But love will make you do crazy things. Thank you. Hope the Academy invites me back. Thank you.
Okay, so no apology to Chris Rock in that speech. He has since posted a public apology on his Instagram. His wife Jada has also cryptically posted on Instagram this morning saying, "This is a season for healing and I'm here for it." I don't necessarily know what that means, but Jayla, if we go into it, the 2 reactions, there seems to be 2 main groups here. People who are on Chris Rock's side saying, it's a joke, can't take everything so personally, can't be getting assaulted on stage presenting at the Academy Awards, one of the biggest, stages in the world. And then the other side, there has been a lot of support for Will Smith, not necessarily his actions. I don't think anyone's condoning the violence, but him standing up for his wife, Jada Pinkett-Smith, who has alopecia. It's since been revealed and come out in the fallout with all of this. So Will Smith took on her behalf that joke about G.I. Jane 2, referencing was it a 90s movie, an 80s movie with Demi Moore? Really to heart, because of course there's this long history and cultural history when it comes to black women and their hair. So there's been that other dialogue happening too. I think that it's possible to not be on board with the joke from Chris Rock and be, critical and not think it's very funny, it didn't really land and maybe it wasn't necessary. I think that that's possible. And it's also possible not to like how Will Smith reacted to it. I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Sure. Look, I agree with that. And that's a very measured approach.
Yes.
But, if I were to draw a line in the sand, I'm much more on the side where what Will Smith did is just completely unacceptable. And that's actually a word he used himself in his eventual apology.
Yes, unacceptable, inexcusable, and poisonous was there too.
It was gross. And to me, it shows like the worst side of Hollywood in this sense. The real, I reckon at core, the reason that Will Smith reacted that way is because he's a Hollywood star who no one ever would deign to make fun of in his real life. And
to his face?
To his face.
Because, this isn't the first time that the couple themselves have been targeted in this way at awards ceremonies. They have often been the butt of jokes, never, I don't believe, for Jada's hair. I think that's the first time in my memory that I can remember that being the subject of a joke, a seemingly innocent joke from Chris Rock. But more so for their apparent open relationship. And that's been, the punchline for a lot of jokes.
Sure. And clearly they feel a bit hurt by that.
Yes.
And this was an overreaction to that joke. The joke was probably gross, but just to waltz up there, slap him across the face, sit back down, and then continue with, like, even what he did when he sat back down to me is more aggressive than the slap in some ways.
It makes me feel, and it's interesting that you say it like that, because it does actually make me feel almost, and I don't know what it says about me, almost more, I found it more confronting than the slap.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Because it was the mad dog eyes, the swearing, the yelling, and even though he was doing it in defense of his wife, which is admirable, it really became all about Will, and it became about almost as if he had been shamed.
Yes.
You know, and that it was a complete overreaction to the joke, and to me it just smacked of, and then afterwards, the fact that whole room gave him a standing ovation when he won. Yeah. No one called him out. I thought that was pathetic. You can't just go around assaulting people in front of the whole world on TV and then get a standing ovation after. Like, give me a break.
Did you buy anything within his speech about how, you know, the life imitating art, he'd got lost in the moment, he was just so furious and all of that? And no, I didn't quite buy that line.
No, it was pathetic. To get up there tearful and to try to justify just like the most base aggressive male behaviour. Like, it wasn't like anything deeper than that. You know, it's all about love and all this rubbish. It's like, no.
Well, there are also rumours circulating that Chris Rock probably didn't even write that joke. You know, which could definitely have some legitimacy to them, because a lot of those award shows, everything is pre-scripted, everything's, you know, been written months out. So he could be just the unlucky soul who is now the face of that. Though I did get an email reminder from Ticketek yesterday informing me that Chris Rock has a world tour coming up called Ego Death, which I thought was, what timing? What timing?
He's got some new material.
He really does. He really does. I actually thought that he handled that pretty well, because again, his reaction also was confronting to me, because you just saw him there, like, actually, like I felt for him in that moment, just of the one. Didn't like the joke, but I felt for him in that moment of just being like, hello, anyone help? Like, no, okay, I guess I'll present this award. Like, and then because we work in TV, I can also just imagine the chaos going on behind the scenes with the broadcast of the producers just being like, what's happening? What's happening?
What do we do?
Get a close-up. Maybe they're just having a joke. Maybe they're having a joke. Oh, not having a joke. Oh, well, oh my God, what's going on? Chris is just standing there. Keep going, Chris, keep going. Like, oh gosh. It was just the most bizarre and extraordinary moment. Do you think it's going to have lasting effects for either man? Or even Jada Pinkett, who now, like, this whole story really centres around her and in her defence, but she hasn't really had a voice in it, which I guess you were talking about, and I actually have a bit of an issue with that too, because her reaction to the joke was to roll her eyes and look very, very, like, you know, just over it.
Exhausted.
Which I think was more powerful than old mate getting up on stage and slapping Chris Rock.
I think so. I'd love to know what Jada thinks, because, you know, she's a very, like, independent thinking woman.
Very
like,
much so.
Anyone who's seen her red table talks and stuff, like, she is no shrinking violet, and she can stand up for herself. Yeah. So I can't wait for whoever nails the interview with her, or maybe she'll do it on her own.
I was going to say, maybe she'll do it on her own platform.
Talk. Yeah, that would be great to watch, because
break the internet.
I'm not 1,000% convinced that she would have been all for it. Yeah. We'll see.
Anyway, look, it was a lot of drama, and it meant that no one really talked about the winners.
Oh, those.
On the night, yep. Jim Carrey has actually come out and had some very, very strong thoughts and words to say about Will Smith stealing the limelight from everyone else at that awards ceremony because of his actions. So Best Picture was a huge upset. Coda was victorious over The Power of the Dog. Billie Eilish won an Oscar for her James Bond theme. And Encanto, Best Animated Film. Like, there was a lot happening. We haven't even begun to talk about what was going on the red carpet with all of the fashion. Luckily, our producers at Flash, they've done all that work for us.
Best dress for me would have to be Kelly Marie Tran, who plays Raya in Disney's Raya and the Last Dragon. She wore a traditional ao dai, which is a Vietnamese dress, to the Oscars, and it absolutely rocked.
Best dressed goes to Jessica Chastain. She looked amazing in purple.
Timothée Chalamet's black sequin blazer and Zendaya's silver sequin skirt killed me.
Quickly, J-Law, your best dressed?
I'm unprepared for this question.
Well, that's okay because
Zendaya looked great.
Zendaya did look amazing. That's
no
the
one's
correct
going
answer.
to argue with that.
No,
right?
no one. No, there was this amazing meme that I saw, and it was just like millennials talk for 45 minutes about Zendaya looking amazing, and I was like, correct. That is standard. Anything that she and Timothée Chalamet does, amazing.
Well, I was going to say someone caught your eye.
Oh, Timmy, all day, every day.
Your boy Timmy.
Yep, Timothée Chalamet. As soon as he rocked up and he's just walking down without a shirt, I was like, oh my God. How can you look like that? He was brilliant. He was brilliant. It's good to see that some of our producers at Flash agree with me, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously. It's the only right answer.
Correct. Well, we were saying next time that there's a red carpet, we need to all get together and share thoughts and put it on the platform.
It's an excellent goggle box, isn't it? Just us sitting around a computer, even if I do say so myself, just being like, nah. Often most of us, well me, I'm always dressed in active wear. I look horrific and I'm there being like, oh, I don't know about the shorts.
The stylist let her down.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Chanel, what the hell were you thinking with Kristen Stewart? What?
We'll do that. Yeah.
Okay, returning to domestic politics now. The PM can't catch a break, J-Law. Can't catch a break. Yeah. Months after the leaked text messages, remember those? Reportedly from the former New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian and an unnamed serving Liberal MP that called him a horrible, horrible person and a complete psycho, an outgoing member of the Senate took aim last night.
In my public life, I have met ruthless people. Morrison tops the list, followed closely by Hawke. Morrison is not fit to be Prime Minister, and Hawke certainly is not fit to be a minister.
Whoa, okay. So just how damaging is this J-Law? This was Concetta Fierravanti-Wells, was not or didn't win pre-selection, obviously has some issues with that, but she didn't miss with a lot of her speech. She basically said it's his way or the highway. She was referencing Scott Morrison, but also the Immigration Minister, Alex Hawke, in that speech.
And so this all gets into like internecine, Liberal Party politics.
Yes, the bickering.
About, who gets the seats and all that sort of stuff. But the problem with it is that what she said fits with what Gladys Berejiklian said, it fits with what Barnaby Joyce said, and like all of these reports are pretty much confirmed.
Yes.
So there's clearly a whole school of thought within the Liberal Party itself that this is who Scott Morrison is. Bit of a bully, Autocrat.
Also used, yes, which is a term that Morrison's been using to describe Vladimir Putin. So I think that was a very choice word.
And then using his religion as kind of like a political tool.
Yes.
That's a bit rough. But that's the thing. He can't really wriggle out of it. And I know that like a lot of people were asking about that when he was trying to sell the budget this morning. You caught some of that.
Yeah, so much so. So he seemed a little bit testy to me this morning in a lot of these interviews because he wanted to sell the budget, wanted to get on the front foot, wanted to really, really slam home that lower middle income tax offset and the expansion of that and, talk about the cash splash in a really positive way to help everyday struggling Aussies. But every second question just circled back to, but are you ruthless and are you fit to be Prime Minister? Because someone who works with you closely does not believe that you are. And again, it's just happening. It's something that he's had to answer now a few times. And he always has the same line that, you can't always be in the business of making friends when you're Prime Minister. If that's your job, then you're not doing a very good job as being Prime Minister, which I agree. You can't make everyone happy. I think it's a really good answer. But there's no doubt that this kind of criticism, especially when it comes from his own party, just opens it up for the opposition to have some fun with as well. This was the Shadow Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, this morning on the Today Show.
Well, there's a pattern here, Carl. The people who work most closely with the Prime Minister and know him the best trust him the least. Senator Fierravanti-Wells is not the first to make that point. And if you can't trust him to deal with his long-term senators in a trustworthy way, you can't trust him on wages or the budget or cost of living or all these other issues that he's now pretending to care about because he's got to call an election in the next fortnight.
Okay, so he has to call the election, yes, very, very soon. We're expecting in the next few days. Does this have any impact, though, on the voters?
Look, I think it will because, and I've said this before, that the problem with a lot of this commentary from his own side is that it fits with some views that people probably have out in voter land, like where, I think that sometimes he can come across that way. And so if they're saying it and people kind of feel it themselves, it could be bad to link those two together. But look, at the end of the day, I think people care more about what their politicians deliver. And so it'll be a question of whether, did ScoMo deliver? That'll be what it more comes down to than any of that kind of personality stuff. What do you think?
I think that it won't really affect any votes that he was going to get. I think that it would only affect people who weren't really going to vote for him anyway. And I'm not sure people, also the same way that I'm not sure how many people were watching the budget last night. I don't know how many people are watching this as closely as we do and necessarily care, because it can just be one of those, there's just a work colleague. You have a falling out with a work colleague. So I don't know if it necessarily has as much weight as the Labor Party would say that it does. In saying that, the frequency of these claims just continues with this snowball, right? So the power of the snowball is, I think, more could have a greater impact than these all looking at them as separate incidents.
Yeah, you might be right there.
Nearly at the end of another podcast. We have been talking nonstop, J-Law, but I have to do a little bit of a plug for the platform for which we both work, Flash, which has over 25 news channels where you can get all this amazing in-depth accounts of what's going on around the world in the one place. A little bit of a special plug, bit of a selfish plug. I would love for everyone to watch our budget analysis that we have done, because it does break it down so easily. So that is on the platform right now. Check it out. What should we be watching?
Well, outside of Australia, I found a really interesting piece of content this week from one of our channels called Quick Take.
Oh.
And it's a show called China Plus.
Yes.
And we know that our audience are quite interested in China,
Very
the
much
rise
so.
of China, what is it up to, how China relates to Australia. And this program looks into some of its expansion plans that you may not be aware of. So, for example, this episode centres in on this land port in literally the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
It's like in the desert in Afghanistan.
Oh.
And China has pumped billions and billions of dollars into creating railway lines. Infrastructure, because it's trying to create a new trade route between Europe and China and indeed the rest of the world. And so this is a strategic thing that it's doing, and it's really interesting just to see a bit of its we often know about what America's up to, what Europe's up to, but this is what sort of China's doing to try to increase its influence in the world, increase its economy, and and it's all related to its military, and all of that stuff in a big way affects Australia.
Yes.
So I'd recommend that. It's called China Plus on Quick Take.
Well, especially in the last week, what we've been seeing happening between the Solomon Islands and China and how that all relates to Australia.
It's all the same thing about it. It's building its influence, its tentacles across the world.
Okay, we did it, J-Law. We got through budget. We got through Oscars. We got through more claims of the PM being an alleged psycho. What a episode of Flash Drive.
Drama.
Maybe that can just be the tagline. What's coming up in this episode? Drama. Just so much drama. J-Law, we're going to be back next week. We'll see if there's any more drama on the way. Remember, Flash and Flash Drive, it's all about the news you want and you need, but when you want.
Catch you next week.